Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Home Screen podcast. It's been a bit of a break, but we're back doing these a bit more often now. Today I'm joined by my dad. Over the last year, he's been watching through all the Infinity Saga Marvel films for the first time for him. And so yesterday we watched Endgame. I think it's my fourth or fifth time watching it, and it was his first time watching it. So, yeah, what did you think of Endgame?
That's great. Nice watching it with you. I'd waited about a month, I think. I'd watched Infinity Wars and then was hanging on, and you said you'd come home. So yeah, it was shocking in some ways, but it was like it seemed to be a fitting end to everything that all the films that had built towards that this time. Yeah, it was everything I'd hoped it would be. I had to keep asking you lots of questions about it all, just to keep reminding me for things I've forgotten.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, there's parts of it that obviously, like with the ether for the reality Infinity Stone, that harkens back to Thor: Dark World, and I had to rewatch that before I saw Endgame because I forgot about how that was tied into the story and things. Yeah, I think it works really well as a bookend to the Infinity Saga. I think it's 22, 23 films. Yeah, I think it was really good. Was there any shocks for you, the things that you didn't see coming?
You told me a few surprises were coming, so well, there were some funny ones, weren't there? I mean, it was great seeing Hulk as a together Hulk. I was really couldn't get my head around that one. Just laughed every time.
Professor Hulk, yeah, that was good. And then the same with Thor as well, I guess.
Yeah. I hadn't thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to pull himself together and retrain, but he just stayed as he was, didn't he? In this last episode.
In this, I mean, so obviously you might go on and watch more Marvel films past this. He does retrain and get sort of back into that with Thor 4, which is Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was really nice. I think Thor had, over Infinity War Endgame, has such an interesting character arc.
Yeah, he does. Emotionally.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is a question to you. I mean, does he towards the end? He didn't get his hammer back, did he? Because was he not seen as worthy?
Well,
He went to Captain America in the end.
I can't. It's an interesting one because obviously Hela destroyed the hammer.
Yeah.
Which is why it just didn't exist anymore. That's why. So he never had it. But now, in this new timeline, I'm not too sure because when Cap goes to return the Infinity Stones, he takes Mjolnir with him. So I'm not 100% sure. I mean, it does sort of get addressed in Thor: Love and Thunder.
Okay.
But the whole worthiness is really interesting because back to Age of Ultron, there's that jokey scene when they're all trying drinks at Tony's tower to lift the hammer.
That's right.
And Cap makes it move just a centimetre. And about how, I guess, leading up to Infinity War, people were wondering whether or not that would be a thing. What did you think of Tony Stark's sacrifice?
So sad. Well, I didn't know who was more sad. I didn't know Black Widow or Iron Man was harder to watch. I didn't think he was going to die, to be honest, because of having a kid, a 5-year-old, and then saying that whatever happened, he didn't want to lose that life. I thought, oh well, he's going to be safe then.
Yeah. Well, like I mentioned to you briefly yesterday, it's great poetically because of outside of the MCU in the real world, like Iron Man there was the Incredible Hulk film, but Iron Man was the true conception of the MCU, and so then is a real bookend of he's the one to end it with the line "I am Iron Man," and then also for Tony's character and how the interaction with Doctor Strange is so interesting because. When he asked him, is this the one? He was like, I can't tell you what will happen, otherwise it won't happen. And then when Doctor Strange just holds up his one finger, he knows that he has to do this. He has to die and sacrifice himself because this is the only 1 in 14 million chance. So
yes. I can see it being like the end of a very complex story for him. But it was still a bit shocking at the end.
It was. Yeah, it was so good, and I thought the music was amazing in this as well. Yeah. And the moment, it's such a goosebumps scene, the portal scene.
Yeah.
When Cap goes to stand off against Thanos, and then the Avengers theme starts with just a solo trumpet, and then it builds into this big crescendo, and everyone comes back.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, that was what I was waiting for. I thought there's going to be something here that's going to like start the whole fight back. So yeah, it was what was surprising for me also was it's nice in a way that some of the movies I've watched that I didn't think were quite as good. Some of them were a bit more bizarre, and I thought, well, does this really link into anything bigger? And then all the storylines seem to like to come together into this last one. It was really good. I was quite impressed.
Yeah, and I think Infinity War and Endgame work so well as this two-parter.
Yeah.
When it was announced, it was Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2, and they renamed it to be Endgame. I think Infinity War did a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of pulling it all together, because before that it was like, how would you ever get the Guardians and the Avengers in the same room?
That's right.
And so that sort of pulled it all together, and then Endgame was the good finale, and it was kind of nice as well. Obviously they knew that this was going to be capping off the Infinity Saga, and so almost felt like a greatest hits when they're going back to the previous movies and seeing like the battle for New York in the first Avengers film from different angles.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, to revisit them was very clever.
Yeah, and I think that it's great that there is it doesn't just end. I think it's 20 minutes post Iron Man snap of scenes of revelation, and about Cap as well had a really nice ending for him at last, getting to return the stones and then live out a bit of a life with Peggy.
Yes, because that was always like an unspoken, unfulfilled desire for him, wasn't it? Always living in the future, but not in his own time. It was. That was really clever.
I think Thanos works. He's such a good villain. He's such a good antagonist.
Well, at one point I thought, it's just going to be a revisit of Infinity Wars. Like, to see how they're going to beat him now.
Yeah.
So that was clever. And then when Tony Stark lifted the stones, that was yeah. It's all. I don't think I could have anticipated much of what was going to go on there, apart from you just knew somehow Thanos was going to die.
Yeah. So now you've seen all of the Marvel films up to that point. What would you say are some of your favourites that you've seen? I mean, there's a lot to choose from.
I think I loved the first Hulk, and I loved the first Iron Man.
Yeah.
I think I like the first ones, the establishing ones.
Yeah.
Establish the stories. The Captain America first one, Iron Man, and Hulk. I think they were my probably initial favourites because they were quite believable.
Yeah.
And they were also based on things on Earth, weren't they? And things in that time. Then when they started to bring out of outer space and other planets, that took a little bit to get my head around. So.
Yeah, but I think especially like the quality and the budget and everything scale so much. Like especially in Phase 3, which is kind of then you have like Civil War, Doctor Strange, Ragnarok, Homecoming, Guardians 2. They're all so different when you look back to Iron Man, the first Iron Man.
Yeah, and things like Civil War was clever because it left a lot of things still just hanging and a split in the team, and so you knew there has to be some future films that are going to develop that symbol. So it was all clever. It was good. What about you? What would you say your favourites are?
It's hard to rank Infinity War and Endgame. I think they're both up there with being. It's hard not to have them as my favourite just because it is the culmination of everything that leads up to them. I think as films as they stand on their own, if someone was to watch that without knowing it, it wouldn't have nearly as much impact.
No.
But and also just I think the experience of seeing them both on opening night at midnight with a packed cinema will always, every time I watch it, I'll always harken back and remember to that experience, like when Cap lifted Mjolnir and when the portals came, people were standing up and cheering and clapping.
Were they?
The whole cinema was like when Cap said Avengers assemble, the whole cinema cheered and stood up and clapped, and it was...
Oh, very good.
So, yeah, I think that'll always be up there for me. Civil War was good. I thought the first Doctor Strange was good.
Yeah, I never quite got into that one, but yeah.
And Captain America Winter Soldier, I think.
Yes.
Until Infinity War and Endgame, I think that was most people's favourite, because that was really grounded. It was more like a spy thriller, and it could almost stand on its own.
Yeah, it's clever, that.
I thought that was good. Good. Well, we'll wrap it up in a minute. Moving forward, is there anything else that you think you'd like to still watch? Are you still going to see a few films, or maybe one of the series, or are you just going to see what you fancy?
Well, I think I probably need to see Loki to try and understand his character a bit more.
Yeah.
And I still want to watch Black Widow because I'd like to understand her backstory. And then you say that the Thor is still... Oh, you say the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is worth...
I think that...
As a finishing off.
Yeah, I think that it'd be good to watch... So you've seen Spider-Man Homecoming. It'd be good to watch the other two Spider-Man films.
Yeah.
So Far From Home, because then that came out pretty soon after Endgame. So it'd be good to see Far From Home and No Way Home. Basically just to finish off the trilogy. So Far From Home, No Way Home, Guardians 3, they're really good. And then there's a lot of other good ones throughout, but I think they kind of further the stories, whereas those ones kind of put an end on the characters we know them. Loki's good. Some of the series are a bit hit and miss. There's good moments in all of them, but I think Loki's...
You enjoyed WandaVision, didn't you?
WandaVision's good, and so is Falcon and Soldier, but I think they both started off strong and interesting, but then kind of became a bit more generic towards the end. But I think Loki's quite consistently good throughout.
It's certainly, I have to say, it's certainly satisfying watching... There's not many times you can watch a whole group of films that are all linked together. The last thing I watched before that was we watched Harry Potter and watched a sequence of films and seen developing characters. So this has been really great. It's been nice for over 2 years.
It's great, and I think it's almost hard to replicate, I think, because obviously everyone's hoping that Marvel will maintain quality and do good work moving forward, but this was could almost say accidental or unintentional when it started. It just grew, and then they grafted it into this films leading on with post-credit scenes into each other to this big moment. To think that it's kind of hard to achieve that again, so it's nice to have witnessed it and experienced it like this, especially seeing everything. Yeah,
definitely.
Cool. Well, we'll wrap it up there. So thanks for chatting.
Thanks for recommending all these films to me.
Yeah. If you haven't seen Endgame, I definitely recommend watching it. But it's definitely more satisfying if you've seen all of the Infinity Saga MCU films. So thanks for listening to the Home Screen Podcast. If you like this episode, check out more of them on Spotify and head to our social media links in the description. Thanks. Bye.